Hello there. My name is the number 12, and I'm about to make you very, very hungry. Probably, anyway. I have not had Flamin' Hot chips in a long time, and I kind of started to feel nostalgic for them. Mostly because I watch a lot of Markiplier, and his Takis reviews piqued my interest in them, at least. So I'm here to review a bunch of these Flaming Hot chips, except this time, I'm actually going to eat the chips. You are welcome. Just wish I was as handsome as Markiplier. Can't win them all. And by the way, since I happen to believe in the idea of reusing, you're gonna see me do this in a whole lot of different shirts, a whole lot of different lightings, and a whole lot of different hairstyles, probably because I'm about to cut my hair, but I couldn't wait to go and start this off anyway. So, yeah, I'm not gonna just sit here and review them all rapid fire one at a time. I'm gonna enjoy them as long as I can. I'm very good at milking my little goodies for as long as I can. So I'm not gonna stop doing that here. Just, trying to let the different shirts and everything distract you from enjoying my review of these things. Okay, so these first three that I'm gonna show you, I got the other day on a whim when I decided to go down to the AM/PM right by the local Taco Bell and grab a couple of these chip packs from there. Yeah, that's right. AM/PM. I'm a baller. Alright, so first up, I'm going to do these in order of the size of the bags because they were way uneven. First up, you probably saw, we're going to do Cheetos Flamin Hot Limon. Now, my mother got me hooked on Flaming Cheetos a long time ago, and I certainly wouldn't say that I'm unhooked on them. But I kind of forgot what it's like to add the little limon taste. So let's see. Oh, and I almost forgot. Always have a stash of napkins on hand for the inevitable nose running that will be taking place. Okay, that didn't taste any different from what I remember. Without the word limon. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, that second one. Yeah, adding the lemon certainly adds an extra layer of zest to it. I mean, I really don't think I need to say anything about the taste. Like I'm sure everybody who doesn't care about themselves loves Flaming Cheetos. Or Cheetos in general. Yeah, there's a little extra kick to it with the limon. Not that it makes it like any more difficult to take, because like my taste buds are relatively weak. So having these flaming hot chips is just kind of like my way of pretending that my taste buds can actually handle stuff. So the limon does not make it any more difficult for you to take if you can't handle things that are too spicy. So this still works. Like limon or no limon, it's still fine, but it certainly does add that extra kick to it. So anyone who's into having a slight extra kick to it, and anybody who finds regular Flaming Hot Cheetos to be slightly too boring, this is absolutely worth it. I don't know if it's actually more expensive than regular ones. Now, of course, I'm going to reference Markiplier's video all the time, and you know how he is about the powder. This doesn't seem. Hold on. It's really hard to tell with my webcam. This is probably the best one out of the lot in terms of how well it's covered. This is not particularly well covered by the substance, so. That's probably why this one isn't particularly intense. But, can never go wrong with these. Again, unless you suddenly decide that you care about yourself. In which case, why bother? But if you don't care about yourself, these are always reliable. Even if this particular bag doesn't have a whole lot of I guess, flavor enhancement compared to what it could, you know, it's still very tasty. Because I actually eat the chips. And that was the wind. The window is open. And it's blowing the door open and shut. I bought all these in secret. I bought all 3 of these bags in secret. My uncle and my grandma don't know that I have them. Because I didn't want to share them. I'm going to do my best to make it up to them. I'm going to, like, try not to eat any of the chips downstairs that we do share now that I have these. Because as soon as I run out of these, I'm going to raid the downstairs stash of chips for as much as I can. But while I have these, I'm going to try not to. But I bought these. They're mine. No questions. Anyway, next, time skip. I just wanted to point out that we're about to have some Subway, so Flaming Hot chips right before a Subway sandwich. That's what I call a great combination and a great preparatory snack. Okay, now time skip. Okay, that bag's done. So now we're moving on to this Doritos Flamas. Now, come on. Come on with this. Okay, I get it. I understand that you guys just wanted to be just completely blatantly obvious. I can respect that. It's not Takis Fuego, it's Doritos Flamas. Completely different original fan character. Oh man. Imagine, I don't think I've ever seen a commercial for these things, but like imagine the marketing. It's Takis with a twist. As in, literally, they have a twist shape. I am very funny. So. Now, I am actually kind of... Oh, wow. That's a really enticing smell. I gotta give them credit. It smells really nice. Okay, in all honesty though, I hope I don't get sponsored by these, because if I do get sponsored by these, I think that if I ever have the blessing of being able to meet Markiplier in real life, then he would probably beat me up and then cry. And I don't want him to do either. I wish Markiplier was my friend. Okay, so here's the close-up of the chip. Again, my face cam quality is not very good, so it probably looks like it has more power than it does. Just taking a brief glance into the bag. You can't see that at all, I'm sorry. Taking a brief glance into the bag, it looks like, again, it could be filled with more powder, but... Wow. Oh! Okay, so this actually tastes almost identical to the Cheetos, but with a little bit more kick from the lime. And again, that was with less powder. In fact, here's one that almost has no powder at all. You can see how orange it is compared to that last chip that I showed. Okay, that one was super mild. But if you do happen to get a bag with a lot of powder, then it is a bit more intense. It's pretty much the same thing, actually. Like, I don't think I'm going crazy here. I mean, my taste buds aren't hugely sensitive. So, like... So I can't taste too many, like, minute differences between these things. But that really did feel like just a slightly more intense version of the Cheetos Limon. So if that's what you like, then yeah, give these a shot, because They might look silly and clearly based off of a more famous chip, but you know what? They're darn good. They're darn good. I'm a fan. I'm gonna have to pick some more of these up, probably. Now, it's kind of just inherent that with the spiral designs of each individual chip, that some are going to be more soaked than others. Like the degree of spice and flavor between each individual chip is quite staggering. So that's probably my biggest complaint about them. But like, if what they wanted to emphasize was the spiral design, then oh well, that's the nature of the beast. This bag has so many more individual chips too. Oh man, you really can't see anything. I'm trying in vain to make this work with the setup that I have. But just take my word for it. This bag has a lot more going for it than that Cheetos bag. But again, that might just be how AMPN carries it. I don't know. the difference in bag sizes was vast. I've already eaten all of my Cheetos, like I said, so I don't have the bag anymore. But just like at the size of my hand as reference, this bag is significantly larger than the Cheetos bag, and the next bag's going to be significantly larger than this one. So that'll be fun when I record it. All right, so these two are just destroyed with powder. Maybe not destroyed with powder to the degree that Markiplier likes it. I don't know why I keep talking about him like he's a friend of mine. God, I wish. But these have a lot of powder on them compared to the other ones that I've had so far, so... Small one. Okay, that was nothing, so... This one better be a big kick. Ooh. Whew. Okay, yeah, so if you get one with a lot of powder, it should be pretty potent. It would seem that, according to like logical progression, the deeper you go into the bag, you know, the more stuff is on top of it, obviously. So I guess some of the powder from the top chips can kind of like wiggle their way into the bottom chips. So don't judge your first bag of Doritos Flamas by the first few chips, because it can get a lot spicier down near the bottom. I'm not near the bottom yet. I'm actually like barely in the middle, but like the point still stands. Okie dokie, and now for bag number 3 that I got from AMPM. And look at the size of this thing. Look at the size of this bag compared with my hand. Like I'm gonna have a 3-way comparison on screen at this point, but like seriously, this bag is huge. And yeah, I was not aware that Ruffles ever had a Flaming Hot until I just saw it on the shelves at AMPM. So this is actually completely new to me, and my biggest concern with Ruffles, the little chips having a Flaming Hot flavor, is how thin the chip is. Because like with Takis, and by extension Doritos Flamas, and of course Cheetos, like the chips have a depth to them. Like they're 3-dimensional. Ruffles chips are more or less 2-dimensional. They're very, very thin. So the addition of flavor or spice to them, it's going to be really difficult to actually pull off, because either you coat the entire chip in it and like oversaturate it, or you like attempt to add a layer to the chip, which pretty much doesn't even have any layers. So I'm curious as to how they're exactly going to pull them off. Also, I noticed that there's a chili pepper on the front of... It's a chili pepper and cheese, so they got my attention with that. There's a chili pepper, but there's no lime. Usually, there's not really a lot of smell. Oh gosh. Yeah, now you can see better. This bag kind of sucks. There is not a lot of powder on any of these chips that I can see. So any amount of flavor enhancement that we're going to get, like even the sides of the bag, as you can see, are not exactly stuffed with powder. So this bag is definitely not going to be good enough for me to do like a proper analysis of the flavor. So that's kind of a shame, but hopefully there's at least something in there for me to taste. That's probably why the smell wasn't very intense. I was hoping to be able to pull this off because everybody knows that Ruffles have ridges and everything, right? I was hoping that they'll pull it off by like trying to stuff the powder in the crevices because you can't have a ridge without a crevice. But they really didn't seem to do a lot of that at all. There's barely any powder in these chips, so that's kind of a disappointment. It's such a huge bag too, so I was looking forward to this, but oh well. Nothing. Nothing. This is a terrible bag. Oh, there's a little bit of an aftertaste. There's a little bit of a chili aftertaste. And yeah, like I mentioned, there's no lime. It's just basically the chili and the cheese, but when you eat it, you only really taste the cheese in a bag like this. The aftertaste, wow, actually the aftertaste is pretty strong. I'm surprised by that. I don't know how to pull that off, but the aftertaste is there, and it does actually have a surprising amount of kick to it, but while you eat it, all you really taste is the cheese. You don't really... A little more powder on it. Okay, that was a good chip. That was a pretty good chip. I like the taste of that one. I hope that this is kind of like the bag of Doritos Flamas, where there's a little bit more toward the center. By the way, the bag of Doritos Flamas, it didn't get any better down. The most coated chips are actually in the center. Maybe they'll do the same thing for this one. Ooh. Oh. This one's small, but it's really well coated. Alright. Try to get it all over my mouth. It still didn't taste that much crazier. Like, I think the thing is, the more powder you get, the sooner the aftertaste hits you. But the spice is all aftertaste, so it's kind of weird. It doesn't all hit you at the same time like it did with the Cheetos and with the Doritos Flamas. So this is a different experience. I wouldn't say it's altogether bad, but it just hits differently than any of the other chips that we've reviewed so far. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's bad, but I also wouldn't like go out of my way to get this flavor. Honestly, you're better off just getting like a cheddar flavor of Ruffles. Again, this is just a bad bag, so maybe there's other bags with more powder that hit you a little bit more intensely, but this is probably the weakest of the three so far. Alright, one last chance to wow me. This one's actually really nicely coated, and it's a big chip. Okay. Okay, we got something there. If you can get a good bag, the taste is really, really good. If you get a bad bag, it's just cheddar and then a slight chili aftertaste. But if you get a good bag, it's really, really good. So, I guess if you want to get them, good luck. See, and then there's this. And then there's this one. Like, come on. Okay, so time for my second haul, because 3 bags isn't really enough material for a stream, or video. Whatever. So this time I went to Smart and Final, because, let's be honest, the gas station can only give me so much material. I was very surprised to see that gas station, the AM/PM, did not actually have OG Takis. So thankfully, Smart and Final does, because I can't possibly do a video like this and not eat the OG Takis. Now, it's not like I really have to do a review on Takis Fuego. Oh, and by the way, the bags from Smart and Final, they all have pretty much the same size, so good on them for the consistency. I don't really think I need to do a review on these because, I mean, is there an individual who's ever had a Taki and not loved them? Come on. But I do feel like I still want to do this just to compare them to the like the Flamin Hot Limon and the Doritos Flamas, because it actually has been a while since I've had the OG Takis. And you better believe these are the OGs, because you can't spell Fuego without O and G. If that ever becomes a tagline, I will punch myself in the face repeatedly. Anyway, so this is one of those bags with the serrated edges, as you can see. I have not done anything to the bags. Well, I guess let's just find out what kind of bag this is. Is this a good bag or a bad bag? Alright, and phone cam.
It's a bad bag. I mean, the color looks nice, but I can tell that there's not a lot of powder on it. I'm hoping that it's at least concentrated toward the bottom, but this is definitely not one of the bags that you want to have for your first time out, because this is definitely not going to give you a proper taste for just how good this can be. In fact, this is probably... I seem to remember my first couple of bags of Takis being really, really good ones. Was like some of the chips just being overwhelmed by the powder, but these chips are almost completely bare naked. This is the antithesis of my first couple of bags. So this is actually a new experience for me. How do the chips taste with almost no powder?
Well, that blows. Oh well. Yeah, the actual tortilla is a little bit more bitter than I remember. Like, the tortilla has a bit of a bitter taste. There's just not really enough powder on this. Yeah. Like, I'll still eat the tortilla, but I'm beginning to see where Markiplier is coming from. It actually, the chip itself is a lot more bitter than say a Lay's or a Doritos Nachos cheese. Like even the Turbo Flamas chips actually tasted better than these chips do. And I can't believe I'm saying that. But, yeah. This is sad. And it's still edible. It's still alright. There's that small amount of powder on it. Like there's still like a slight kick, and it's not aftertaste. So it has that going for it. It's not aftertaste like those Ruffles were. You are actually still enjoying the heat while eating it, so that's cool. But when it's just showing up in bits here and there while you're chewing on the relatively bitter tortilla, it's not really worth it. I would definitely prefer the other chips that I've had so far in this video to a bad bag of Takis Fuego. Big chip here. Here's a big chip. More surface area. It's got a little bit more powder on it. Okay, that tasted really nice, and it is different from Flamin Hot Limon and Doritos Flamas. I can't really discern exactly how it's different. Like no culinary expert. I don't have fine-grained or fine-tuned taste buds. But it is actually slightly different. And it's still really nice. Like I think with Takis they focus more on the actual spice than they do the flavoring. So that's probably the difference. Is that it's just more pure spice rather than trying to add any kind of fruity kick to it. So if you like fruity kick, then I would veer toward Flamin Hot Limon or Doritos Flamas. Family's here. I probably should stop the video now before they realize that I have a secret stash of chips. I do not want them to know this. I mean, they probably will once I upload this video. I mean, that's kind of a given, but until now, I've got 3 more bags where this came from, and I don't want to lose them. I've already given you all I can give anyway, so see you on the next bag. Okay. I'd like to report quietly. It's at night. I'd like to report, by the way, that I almost forgot one very critical thing about Takis bags, and that is what a lot of them like to do is they like to stuff the powder, the real good, like, thick glob concentrations of powder toward the bottom of the bag. That last bag that I showed off was one of those bags where, like, it just gets better and better the further you go down into the bag. So the last few chips that I ate out of that Takis bag were amazing. So, and I wanted to mention that specifically so that I compared that to Doritos Flamas, because Doritos Flamas did not, like, there was no real gradient for how powder thick the chips got. It was just kind of all over the place. Some were good, some were bad. So that's one difference between Takis Fuego and Doritos Flamas. So anyway, the next bag that I hoped doesn't wake anybody up when I open it is Doritos Salsa Verde. Because I thought I might as well mix it up a little bit. This is obviously not like supposed to be like uber spicy or anything or uber hot, but there's flames on the bag, so what the heck. I'm just curious at how this tastes, because this seems like it would be a really, really interesting thing to do. Like, it seems like a real good combination too with the way Doritos make their usual chips and just the concept of salsa verde. Besides, as of this recording, I'm still living in Southern California, so I'm practically a Mexican. So I can't possibly go wrong with this. Please do not be too loud when I open it. I don't think that's it. Whoa. Ooh. Okay. That smell is very, very intriguing. That smell is like, I don't know, fish tacos? No. I don't actually usually like fish tacos, or frankly, I'm really not a huge fan of fish in general. But it does remind me of the smells of Miguel's Cocina, which is just this amazing, authentic Mexican place, kind of scattered throughout most of Southern California, that we have been to a number of times, and it's really, really amazing. In case you don't know, if you go to Miguel's Cocina, they will keep feeding you nachos complimentary, and if you happen to go between, I believe, the hours of 3 and 6 p.m., there is a happy hour menu, which offers you up a bunch of really cheap options that will still fill you up really good. Personally, I recommend either the beef tacos or the taquitos, because despite their low price, it's very, very filling. Okay, so I don't know how much it's necessary that I bring the phone in to look into the bag, because, like, for Doritos, it doesn't really matter too, especially for the Salsa Verde flavor, it doesn't really matter how much powder there is, but just for the sake of consistency, I'm going to do it anyway.
Alright, so, yeah, that's what the inside of the bag looks like. Let's see if I can bring it to light a little bit better. There we go. It's at night, obviously, so I'll do what I can. But that is what the inside of the bag looks like. Actually, it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of stuff on it. So the flavor that's like cooked into it is obviously cooked into the chip itself. So that should be interesting.
Okay, let's see how in-baked Salsa Verde tastes. Oh, wow. Okay, you know what? This actually surprises me. This actually has the most kick out of any of the chips that I've tried so far. You know, obviously the sorry, hold on. It's hard to do with this lighting. Obviously the flames on the bag warn you a little bit, but I was honestly unexpected to have this much kick to them. Like, it's pretty much right at my personal limit for when it stops being cool and fun and starts to be slightly painful. But that's, again, because my taste buds are really weak. The actual flavor is really, really nice. But again, I'm from Southern California, so I'm super biased in favor of this kind of a flavor. But if you've ever been to like a real Mexican place, obviously not Taco Bell, because Taco Bell's the US's version of Mexican food. So it's faux Mexican food, although I do like it. But if you've ever been to a real Mexican place and you really like the taste of their stuff, I think you'll really like these chips too. Like, it's not proper Mexican unless there's a little bit of kick to the meal, whether it be in the meat itself or in the tortillas. So, obviously, a lot of chips are made of tortillas. I'm actually an idiot, and I don't know whether or not Doritos does tortillas, but but they could fool me. They could fool me with these. And these are really tasty. Okay, that first bite actually shocked me a little bit with how tangy it was. Now that I'm used to the taste, it's not painful at all. It's actually delicious. I'm really going to enjoy it down in the rest of this bag. But still, it's crap. I am an incredibly lucky human being. I've been blessed with an amazing family, including, among many other things, they do not invade privacy. I've got this bag in my hand. I even got 2 chips in my hand. All she did was just peek into the door. She didn't even see that I was recording myself. So, the secret lives on. So yeah, once your mouth gets used to this taste, I think you're gonna love it. But again, basically just go to any Mexican place. If you happen to not like their food, first of all, I feel very sorry for your taste buds. And second of all, if you do, these are worth it. Doritos Salsa Verde is definitely unique enough. Like, obviously, it's no substitute for real Mexican food. But like, as far as a nice crunchy taste with a lot of like specific kick to it, I think they did a really good job with it. Like, they certainly have a lot more like, I don't want to say authentic, because like, it is a potato chip after all. but a lot more, I guess, regionally specific kick to it than anything you're going to have from Taco Bell. So next up, 6 out of 7 is a rather curious one. And it's making me think that maybe I need to do a little bit of research as to which company owns what in terms of the chip business. Doritos Flamas. Notice that is the exact same font as Turbos Flamas, so I have absolutely no idea what to make of this. I'm just hoping that the taste of the Turbos Flamas is fresh enough in my taste buds that I can actually do an adequate comparison. So, notice that there is a lime here as well as the chili pepper, so it would seem that they're going for the exact same flavor. And by the way, this is not even the only spicy Doritos. I mean, there's the Salsa Verde, of course, but there are actually some other spicy flavors of Doritos that I saw at Smart and Final. But for the sake of variety, I didn't want to just keep grabbing Dorito. So I went with this one, and in a future video, I might show off another spicy Dorito. Alright, and nice. That's the smell test, that's for sure. Actually smells a little closer to the Salsa Verde than I thought it would. So that's interesting. I don't know how much of this is going to be baked into the chip. Again, it's a Doritos. It's not like the same thing as a Taki or anything similar to that. So it's probably mostly baked into the chip. But let's go to the phone cam anyway.
Sorry that I've been a little inconsistent about the orientation. Oh yeah, we got powder. We actually got a lot of powder here, and it seems to vary pretty intensely by chip, but. Yeah, it seems like this is the type of spice that actually does require powder rather than just being baked into the chip. And this seems to be a pretty good bag just from the sheer look of it. If one of the top chips is that heavily coated, then this is probably a good one.
And once again, I'll be going Subway strats. So this is going to go well with that. Alright, I'm going to pick. Here's a chip that's actually not very well coated, so this is the intro flavor. Even from that, and like, yikes, the difference between the parts of the chip that aren't coated and the parts of the chip that are coated are night and day in terms of flavoring. Even from that, I can tell this is basically the same flavor. That Flamas is basically the same flavor, but this is much more uniquely coated, or uniformly coated. Yeah. Basically the same, except now it's in triangle form. So, Cheetos Limon, Turbos Flamas, and Doritos Flamas are essentially the same flavor, as far as I can tell. It just depends on what shape you like your chips to be, I guess. Now I'm really glad that I picked up the Salsa Verde because that did actually provide quite a bit of variety. I actually wouldn't really recommend this version. I would say that the Cheetos or the Turbos Flamas would probably be better, just because, I mean, look at this chip. Look at the extreme difference in powder. Like, that's the thing when a chip is large but two-dimensional. The powder does not coat the entire chip. The differences in the bite is just extreme. Like, it's distractingly different between parts of the chip. So good flavor, but I would probably just recommend the other two that I mentioned, just conceptually, like shape-wise, the physics, the design. Like, when I eat crunchy things, or anything really, the first thing that I always do is I like separate the material into the two halves of my mouth. The left side of my mouth there got nothing. The right side of my mouth there got a lot. So that's a problem. And like the non-coated side is relatively bland. Like not even nacho cheese bland. Just like it's just a chip that exists. So the taste really does depend very strongly on the powder. I definitely think I have a good bag here. Just overall, if some of the top chips are as coated as they are, I've actually gotten to the big one. Here's the big one. Yeah, here's a well-coated chip. Oh, that's good. That was actually so thickly coated in powder that it reminded me of the bottom of the Takis bag. Well, I feel like the Takis just has a tiny bit better taste if you can get a really good bag of Takis. A good bag of Takis, I would still say is slightly above this, but not by a whole lot actually. These are all surprisingly good substitutes, and my mouse is moving all by itself, and I don't know how to feel about that. I hope I press stop recording correctly. Okay, this is definitely a good bag. Nice. Whoa! Oh, this is such a good bag. Oh, I'm glad I got this one. This is a really, really good bag. Alright, fantastic. We're done with almost all of this. So we started out with a Flaming Hot Cheetos bag, which was small and middle of the road in terms of the flavoring, followed by Doritos Flamas, which is again about middle of the road, at least I assume so. And then that Ruffles bag, which was terrible. And then the Takis bag, which was quirky, with them starting with almost no powder and then ending with a huge amount of powder at the bottom. Then the Salsa Verde one, which did not depend on the powder at all anyway. And then that Doritos Flamas bag, which was really, really good. So we've been all over the road, and now the road ends with Takis Blue Heat, or as I like to call it, the Mega Man flavor. Because he's blue, and he's always packing heat. Anywho, now this is another one of those bags with serrated edges, so I'm kind of expecting this to be like the other Takis bag, where it starts out with no powder and it gets progressively more. And I'm actually kind of hoping it does, because I'm curious if the blue chips taste any different, or are they less bitter, are they more bitter? So I'm kind of actually hoping that it's like that. Alright, phone cam.
Okay, let's see what you got, Mega Man. And yeah, it looks like I'm just about right. There's not a ton of powder on these. There's actually a bit. There's a little bit of powder on them. So we're off to actually a better start than the last bag was, but it's not powdered up to the point of like unrecognizable. But this is actually pretty promising. If this is like the other bag and it gets more intense toward the bottom, then we could be in for a real treat here.
I was especially looking forward to this one because I'm aware that these are like becoming more and more popular. I don't think they're as popular as the OG flavor, but okay, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. So from that one, I mean, sample size of one is obviously not good, and the taste for all of these things seems to change once your mouth gets like adjusted and used to the flavor. But with that first one, I felt a relatively mild, like, first contact between the chip and my mouth. It's fairly similar to the OG, but just a little bit more mild. But then, as I continued to chew it, the aftertaste actually got a little bit more intense. Like there's two waves of intensity here, which is kind of interesting. At first, I was actually worried about this because, I mean, everybody who knows anything about physics knows that blue heat is stronger than red heat. So I was a little worried that my taste buds maybe not be able to handle this. This is interesting. It's like, yeah, the initial flavor is not as intense, but it lasts longer. And and I think that works better here than it does with that Ruffles bag earlier, because that was the thing with the Ruffles bag, where like the spice was almost entirely aftertaste. It works better here though, because like with the Ruffles bag, the initial taste was just nacho cheese. Like it's basically just the same, or not even nacho cheese, it's like the cheddar flavor, whatever. And the spice just comes in later as kind of a clash to that. Here, it's the same taste, but it's just carried out longer. I'm gonna have two of them. Oh, this one's got a little bit more powder. So yeah, when the aftertaste hits, it's still the same thing as what you tasted earlier. So in this case, that works. And I'm definitely a fan of this. I see why this is becoming so popular. Is it better than... Is it better than Fuego? I don't know. I mean, Fuego is basically 10 out of 10, so I don't know how you can beat that. But you can certainly do your best, and I think this is done just about that. Like this isn't so good that I would just like rush back and immediately. Oh wow! Didn't take long to turn my tongue blue. I guess that explains the aftertaste. Okay, but like that's the problem, because like now my mouth is actually used to it, and it doesn't hit quite as hard, but it's still very similar. It basically just feels like a light version of the old ones, but again, it does last longer. So it's just kind of a different way to enjoy the same thing, really. So if that sounds like what you want, then absolutely give these a shot. Okay, and that will end my review, or at least my first review of all these random spicy chips that I got from all corners of gas stations and regular grocery stores. Or all corners of 2 of them. There's probably more to come. I don't mind wasting away on these happy, flavorful snacks that are supposed to be once in a while. I hope that you enjoyed this review of these 7 little treats, and I might be back with some more. And I don't know how to end this video. I really don't.